Hey!
Hello, I'm PinkAppleJam.
And I am the Raggedy Man.
Once again, we have opened the doors of the Super Fortress Hardcore Game Key to give our breakdown of TV and film and other shenanigans from the past month.
And joining us at 4 p.m. in the delightful world that is the Creative Corner, we have an artist and a puppet maker, which I'm quite looking forward to. I like puppets. I know you have strong opinions against them.
Well, I love puppets. It's haunted, spooky dolls that I dislike. You know.
Anyway, before that,
Music!
body count. It is the mighty body count. This is an area that people may know. I am a hugely into music. I am also hugely into body count because body count are amazing. I first heard Ice-T doing thrash with Slayer for the Judgment Night soundtrack, which is still an amazing soundtrack if you get your hands on it. And then I heard that he had a band called Body Count. And this was back in, oh my gosh, this was 30 years ago, 1992, 1993. I got the eponymous debut album and it was blown away. It was angry. It was deeply political, coming from a political world I wasn't used to experiencing. It was hilariously vulgar. It was brilliant. It had what can only be described as gallows humor, a lot of street humor as well, and I've been listening to them for 30 years because they're bloody amazing and they haven't stopped. And then last week they won a Grammy, which was pretty cool. It was the Grammy for the best metal performance, which I don't know how that's different to the Grammys do things like best single, best performance, best video, and it's all just like what is going on. Anyway, they run that for Bum Rush, which is an amazingly deeply political song they released off another one of their amazingly deeply political albums. Personally, I thought they should have got it for their amazing song No Lives Matter, but the big thing is it's the first person of color band to get a metal related Grammy award, and that's dumb. Frankly, there have been people of color involved in metal and punk at a instrumental, fundamental level.
Yeah, for years
since
past.
The beginning.
This is not a new thing. Do you think it's a bit little too late, or is it finally acknowledging what has been out there for a long time?
It's finally acknowledged, but when you take things like the heavy blues that made heavy metal, and the number of bands like people like Love who were involved in that and never got recognition, and then from the punk side especially things like Bad Brains, Death, Angry Samoans, and people like Millions of Dead Cots, people of color hugely instrumental in that whole thing. Took this long to get to actually get the performance through, so I hope it will demonstrate to people that heavy music is a multicultural, it is a multiracial thing, and it just may, I was really happy because, oh my god, this band I've been a huge fan of for ages got an award. That's nice. But it was just like, yeah, this is the most racial, right? It's actually getting some people of color, of which there are many involved in the scene, some recognition, and I'm just like, well, that's what body count does. It represents and it leads the way. It always has, always will.
It wasn't an award for rap. It was an award for metal.
It was metal. It was best metal performance. I mean, Ice-T's got stuff for rap previously because he's also an incredibly talented rapper.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the first time body count got that level of recognition, and it's the first time, as I said, person of color group got that. And I would
even though there have been people of color in metal for donkey's years.
Yes, and there's like the basis of Metallica. I believe Metallica have won some Grammys in whilst he's been in it, but that's like one member rather than the whole thing.
How long have the Grammys embraced metal? Off the top of my head, I think they've only been doing it for about like 20 years, maybe 15. only 2 decades.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah.
apart from anything else, this is a band that's been going 30 years, which they started out. The first single they did was Cop Killer, which was a little bit political because it was all about police brutality, and the fact that they're now, they're still as political. It's get on that band, get into it.
So there are so many things that still could be changed. However, well done, Body Count, for getting the acknowledgement you deserve.
Ooh, 1989.
Okay, so the Grammys haven't acknowledged it. Yeah. A band shouldn't be able to win it for 3 times in a row.
Definitely not Metallica after they became a pop band with the Black Album.
So that's a bit like it's a bit like saying, here's a mixtape I've made for you, but it's basically like 2 bands. No, that's not a mixtape.
Also in music news.
Yeah. Well, yay! So Lil Naz yesterday released a really, really hot video. So Lil Naz X wrote a letter to his 14-year-old self to mark the release of the music video for his new single, Montero, in brackets, Call Me By Your Name. So Lil Naz X's real name is Montero Lamar Hill. And the video shows him traveling through heaven and hell lands, kissing an alien, giving the devil a lap dance, and it's horny and it's arty, and what is not to love about this video? It's so important.
Horny art. Is
that Lil Naz? Yes, it is. Felflowne. That is Lil Naz. He broke the internet. He absolutely did. So there's a voiceover at the start of the video, and it goes, "In life, we hide the parts of ourselves we don't want the world to see. We lock them away. We tell them no. We banish them. But here we don't. Welcome to Montero." So there's a show on HBO. I'm not sure whether we can access it in the UK or not. But it's called The Shop, and it's basically an interviewer, casual chat interview in a barber shop between celebrities. So Lil Naz was in an interview on that show, and he was asked why it was felt necessary to state that he was gay last year. And Kevin Hart is also in there, and he said he was gay, so what? I think to protect, that wasn't, it's not even a thing. It's not a big deal to the interviewer. But coming out at this stage of his career, this massive trajectory he is on is going to have such a huge impact. And there's this unspoken vibe, he says, that people are not supposed to like, non-straight, non-black stuff in the hood. And what a game changer this will be. People are still asking that question, and it is so sad, but he handled it with grace, and it's so good. So give this video your love, because it's something so different, and I honestly think it's going to shake up a lot of shit that needs shaking up. So, did he really? Maybe Kevin Hart has regretted what he said since that time.
But it was, he walked that back. He walked back with grace. I believe he walked it back with integrity. So if the guy's improved, the guy's improved.
Yeah, great. But he was coming to Lil Naz's defense, at least in this, so I'm hoping growth has happened.
People are going to keep coming out until it's not an issue. Also, after the release of WAP, I think I haven't seen this video yet, but my understanding is it's quite the thirst trap.
It really is. It's amazing.
It's nice to see more thirst from all sides. The thirst is real within the rap community, rather than
thirst does not discriminate.
rather than the cliche booty bounce videos, which is more, that's not.
It's so year 2000. Yeah. Like in the 2020s, everybody gets the thirst. It is not restricted, and that can only be a good
BRB thing. Telling my gran WAP means wet. Anyway.
Oh dear me. Anyway, so that's our music news. That's music news.
That's our music
amazingness.
News.
So yeah, new category.
Meanwhile, in the movies.
Yeah.
It's still funny.
I'm glad you still find it funny. Honestly, I'm glad.
Honestly. So we're gonna start off with Class Action Park, which is actually a documentary. Do you want to introduce this one? Or
I'll introduce this once I've finished bashing all the buttons. So this the simplest way to describe Class Action. Why is it doing that to me? I have no idea.
No idea.
Right.
Just crying with laughter. Just pardon
good,
me.
yes. I am hitting all the wrong buttons. Ignore me.
This show
in 1978, a rich egalitarian called Eugene Mohill opened a theme park in the Vermont Township, New Jersey, United States. It was basically managed by teenagers, had willful disinterest in health and safety to the point of, this is really annoying me, to the point
what a shame.
of just being quite awful. Fuck it. It had rides which were basically bad ideas brought to life. It killed 6 people. And Seth Porge, Chris Charles III directed it. John Hodgman narrated it perfectly deadpan, as always with John Hodgman. Park guests and staff were interviewed for it, and it was the #1 film on HBO Max when it aired. So not like the #1 documentary or whatever. It was the #1 film when it landed.
Amazing.
And okay.
So I asked my mum and dad, who had more memories of the 90s news than I did, because I was a teenager. My mum and dad said even in the UK they had heard about Action Park because it was notorious, absolutely notorious. So in the 17 years when Action Park opened in 1978, it closed in 1996. A total of 6 deaths were confirmed.
Yes.
But the number of serious injuries, like proper, not just like a fracture or anything, but serious breaking of countless. There is actually no record of how many people were actually injured in this park because you were expected to come back with something in a cast.
They had from that video, which will probably come back once I've worked out how to hit the buttons right. From the video, you saw one of the most notorious was a loop-de-loop. Which people got stuck in and people lost teeth. They had cart rides going down hills which people flew off because the brakes didn't work. They had pipe jumps that just broke people on impact. And the reason it wasn't recorded was to get around insurance and all that. They just gave people comp passes for the next day.
Yeah,
and that was why they weren't recorded. Yeah.
So the guy that ran it was ex-Wall Street, and he bought this park, and he was like, everybody's so namby-pamby. We want to have some fun here. So he basically had ideas, and he brought on engineers to start making things. The loop-de-loop that you saw at the start of that loop show actually got to 0G. So when people had hit the top of it, people had come out with smashed faces and blood all over the place. So when they actually had a look and took the top bit out, they actually found teeth stuck in the top of this loop. And people had just come out, and that was like 10 minutes into the documentary, and the documentary is like an hour and a half. And like, you think that's how it starts. How is it going to go?
And that's the problem. Watching it was actually exhausting.
Yeah, we had to watch it in parts. Actually,
we were pausing the thing just to recover from the levels of willful negligence and homicidal stupidity that were just chalking up. It's
absolutely
it did not stop. It refused to let up.
Considering the stereotypical impression that we get about America being a suing country, like how come more people didn't get sued? But there's a horrible amount of red tape in this documentary. So I will say this about the documentary, that it starts off quite comical. You're laughing and you're cringing and you're tensing up. You're like, oh my God, teeth were stuck at the top of this ride and that ride, and people smashed their elbows or whatever. And it tells you everything that was like insane about this theme park.
Which was everything.
About halfway through, they start talking about the deaths, and then it goes back a little bit. So I'd say like the first 40% of the film is about the insanity. The next 40% is actually the sadness and how people who ran the park circumvented being
every single law,
laws.
Sensibleness. It was for me, I found it quite interesting. It was
but the last 20% is basically what happened afterwards as well.
Yeah, no, this there was a documentary. I believe that was the one by Defunctland was the one that then got them to do this full one, which was like 2 hours. And the thing that really struck me was it was the interviews with the people who'd been to Action Park. I found very insightful because they were adults looking at the experience they'd gone through, and they were like, yeah, we could have like totally killed ourselves. Oh well. It was such a bizarre acceptance of it.
I don't know, it was kind of an acceptance, but the last 5 minutes of people talking about it was a sadness. It was a sadness. Like,
it was a sadness, but it was a strange one because it had touches of them being sad that it was over, but also being really happy it was over. It was
it's a very conflicting feeling. It's and I think trauma is actually a big thing. There was one chap who is the chap sat on the sofa in those clips, and he was the one that had the most vivid memories and was being interviewed about it. But he and his family weren't able actually to go, and he only got chance to go because obviously his mom and dad had said, no way you're going to go to this park, he will come back in 2 pieces, you can't. But then a friend's family was going and invited him, and the family couldn't really say no, and they basically took him to one side and said, please just use your head and don't go on anything. Can you imagine it? It must be like setting your kid off to go to war or something, not knowing whether they're going to come back. I'm serious. They couldn't say no. So yeah, he's got vivid memories, but he speaks of it more as being a bystander as opposed, and he went on maybe 1 or 2, but I think people just went to observe, even the wave pool had so many fans in it to create these waves. The waves would crash out and they would actually suck people under, and they would, and 1 or 2 of those were deaths to do with it. It's just a jaw-dropping experience. And I've genuinely been recommending it to everybody to watch because it's just unbelievable.
As a demonstration of what the libertarian approach delivers, it was. But you know what would really make it so much better, that whole story? If someone was to try and do a more toned down version of it, a little bit more.
And how about if we did it with the cast of MTV's 2000s show Jackass, known for fully grown adults, wrecking themselves for shits and gigs.
And this is what it was. Your turn to do the intro, darling.
So basically, this film was released in 2018, and it stars Johnny Knoxville, as you can see here, as a DC carver, an owner and an operator of an eponymous and ramshackled park. So in between Jackass level shenanigans with his co-star, and then we go through this touching story of DC checking in and connecting with his daughter Boogie. Boogie is played by Eleanor Worthington. This was actually genuinely inspired by Action Park and the Defunctland documentary. It's basically even in this toned down replica, Johnny Knoxville got 4 concussions and an assortment of other injuries. Standard.
He claims he got more injuries making this film than he did doing the Jackass series. So that's a level of the irresponsibility for our viewing amusement.
Oh my god! I've always had a soft spot for Johnny Knoxville because he's just mad. He's just mad, and it's live action slapstick concussion for our entertainment. And I applaud that man, dedicated himself his entire life. How has that man reached 50 years old? How is that man 50 years old? Because he shouldn't have survived. Basically, Johnny Knoxville is the laugh track, basically. So if anybody in the chat watched Jackass, you'll know what to expect. But this film made me laugh so hard. One of the cats we have kept coming up to me to check in to see if I was all right. She was just like, "Are you having an asthma attack or something? Are you okay?"
Laura had issues through this.
My god! But like good issues. It was a surprise. Action Point is a surprisingly endearing film. recommended entirely as modern slapstick. So I hadn't seen a Jackass film for like 15 years. So it was a gentle welcome return to Jackass antics for us in our middle age. So yeah, that real life anarchy.
Oh yeah,
is
Jackass was Redhead Ramblings. Jackass was infantile and disturbing. That was probably the thing I never got until someone pointed it out to me later is that Jackass is also consumption porn. Because it is, because it's like America, you have to pay for your hospital and that. So going and doing all that injury, you're basically just going, look at me, I've got enough money to go and break my leg.
But enjoying it vicariously without actually having to do it yourself.
Yeah, but it's like watching someone
pay them hospital bills.
Watching someone eat 20 pizzas in one go. It's like, oh wow, someone did that. Isn't that great? It did get moaned at because it was pretty soft, and it
See, people said it was soft, but I honestly didn't think it was soft. But it was a genuine criticism that the film received. You know, I thought it was its own thing. It was fine. I think that criticism for me just seems so strange because, like, clearly the Jackass cast, they are, number one, broken. Number two, they're probably a bit too old to do coke at the same amount that they did. But the entire film, the cast, they are in their 40s and their 50s. They cannot do those mid-20s, early 30s antics for a Hollywood film.
Knoxville and Chris Pontius are. But a lot of the cast, because one of the few things they got right about this was having a lot of teenagers and young people being staff. And by being staff, I mean security, the accountant, the first aid. They had like 16, 17-year-olds doing that. So that was accurate. It was toned down in the level. We are watching serious injury happening literally on screen. We see serious injury, but they toned out how violent action the park was. They also toned down how much of a complete jackass the owner of the real place was.
They actually gave him like emotion.
Rather than being a psychotic. So I think some of the criticism is that they not only that Jackass toned it down, but that they toned down the source material, probably because they wanted to make it realistic. They wanted to make the main character likable, and they didn't want to injure every single person on set because some of it you're just like, how would you fake it in cost? So that was interesting.
It's been interesting reading up on it afterwards. So the entire film that they built for Action Point was built from scratch. They found an area of Cape Town so that gravity could do its thing, and they actually built that entire set in Cape Town. So it was a toned down version, but to make the lead character likable, events believable. But Johnny Knoxville can act when he's not being repeatedly hit in the dick, but he can do both.
It was interesting to see, and the daughter was great. It worked as a touching family story.
Yes,
and that was good. That was good.
Honestly,
let's talk about another likable character, which is Dennis Hopper in Night Tides, which he was so likable in that, wasn't he? No. Oh my god.
He was so creepy. So this film features a lot of beatniks, sailors. If you get rid of the Night Tide poster, we can actually see what's going on, Andy.
I'm working as fast as my little fingers will go.
There you go. Let's keep that on a loop now. That's fine. So basically, Dennis Hopper, he plays a creepy sailor. Like, I can't even figure out whether this guy is supposed to be creepy or not, but he comes across really creepy. He's
1950s sailor on shore creepy. So it's like he's not supposed to be creepy, but we'll watch it now. We're just like sex pest.
Yeah, it's not aged well, basically. Do you want to continue with the introduction, Andy? Sorry, I feel like I completely elbowed in on that.
So Linda Lawson is a jazz aficionado, part-time carnival mermaid, possibly deadly sea creature. Possibly, we don't know. Gavin Moore is Captain Murdoch, who runs the carnival, and that she works in, and is also drunk. Marjorie Cameron is billed as the Sea Witch and runs around looking at people funny, and it's creepy in all the wrong ways. It also does the most realistic setting of a jazz bar I've ever seen, in that the first 15 minutes are in a jazz bar and not one person looks like they want to be there. So that's quite authentic of the jazz.
They are all listening to this jazz so intensively, and then the Dennis Hopper character sits down and she's like, yeah, and she basically says, yeah, but shut up, I'm listening to the jazz.
And then looks miserable because she's listening to the jazz.
Yeah, exactly. So it's your Mako in the chat is basically it's King Koopa from Super Mario Brothers. Good grief.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course it is. Sexy murder mystery mermaids. But it's so creepy. It's weird. It's so odd. Women are being randomly hit on. And they seem okay at being hit on. I don't know. Creepy toxic masculinity.
She gets aggressively hit, just aggressively approached, like woman in place. Just enjoying tunes.
Jazz is musical masochism.
I listen to noise industrial, and I have to agree with that statement.
Jazz, what was that meme I shared earlier? Jazz is just music, but playing all the wrong notes.
The wrong notes.
All the wrong notes in the wrong order.
But it's also, I mean, there is within all of this, and this is where I no, it will not. This is where I look at things. It was very overt that this was creepy as all hell. But I was able to enjoy it because there is a good movie behind this. There is a good story. There is a good mystery. The conclusion is, it's one of those things where, if you can forgive the fact that it's creepy as hell,
so creepy.
It's also got a proto hentai squid sex scene that's probably going to get some of the hentai people really.
I mean, this film is so mild as well. You can watch it
mild,
in front of
squid sex scene is the squid sex scene is hilariously and quite steamy, and it I enjoyed it. It was one of those, your dad found it and went, it's awful, and we watched it.
Actually, no, I found it.
Oh, you found it? Sorry.
My dad usually finds us loads of weird B movies and stuff. So we basically just swap them around. So, yeah. But this one I'll lend to my dad's. But it'll be interesting to see what the older generation think of this film, because I didn't really get it. It was so fascinating because it was so modern in so many ways. But it completely fell apart. If we were going to do a quick judgment of whether it was trash or treasure, what would you give it, Andy?
I would give it a treasure because I can forgive the fact it's creepy as hell, and the creepy as hell element kind of adds to something to it because I'm weird like that.
It's I don't know whether it's I don't know. I can't judge as to whether it was going to be acceptable at the time. But whether it's acceptable now.
Yeah. Anyway.
Meanwhile, on TV.
So for very happening, joyous TV times, we decided to sit down and watch The Ripper. So the Yorkshire Ripper. Unrelenting police incompetence is the best subtitle for this film on the planet, and it really is. What's pleasing, I will begin with what's pleasing about this TV miniseries. It's 4 episodes long, and the Ripper is not mentioned in person until right at the very end. It absolutely concentrates on missed opportunities, the robust sexism that just honestly, Felf, it's so well done. Andy, you said it was they've improved upon it from the Ted Bundy series. Andy, what was your comment about that?
I thought they'd improved on it by being very focused on the victims, and they didn't buy into the mystique. They basically presented Sutcliffe as the awful person that he is. They didn't present him as being smart. They presented him as being lucky, and the police being dumb as mud. It was very, very critical of the police because, they were terrible.
I think what is really important about how they produced the Ted Bundy miniseries and how they produced this miniseries. Even though they glorified a little bit somewhat the Ted Bundy one, this one they didn't glorify the actions. And they, at the end of the day, they said, they basically said, what a pathetic little man for both of them. Which was so important. Yes, sorry, Andy, go on.
I thought it was also as a document, it was very good because they used extensive interviews with investigators, journalists, the few survivors of his attacks, and family members of the victims. And that was done very well, and that was very, very nicely handled. They also used an awful lot of contemporaneous media to really give a feel for what was going on. And it was really, it looks like a hatchet job. And then I went and read, and it was just like, oh, here's some of the police incompetence they didn't include.
Oh my gosh. So they didn't, oh my gosh. So long story short, for maybe the younger viewers who don't know what the hell this is all about, basically 1975, the Yorkshire Ripper is basically a chap called Peter Sutcliffe. He murdered women in Yorkshire, basically just because he's an awful person. So it's directed by Jesse Vile and Eleanor Wood. So it chronicled the sad tale of 13 murders, 7 attempted murders. It used the mix of interviews with investigators, journalists, survivors and family member victims, as Andy said. As well as detailing the horror and the impact. It just details that awful level of incompetence. What was especially worse is that we were watching this when the body was found in London of the woman walking home, trying to do everything, stay to brightly lit paths, and policeman was taken into custody over this, and we were like, it's just happening again. Literally nothing has changed.
It was
in 40-odd years.
The three things that really struck out, a couple of things that really struck out for me. One, the solution to someone going around murdering women was for all the women to stay indoors.
Where we had that.
We sat there and we went, that's not on. And the fact that the feminist movement in the UK kind of got a massive kickstart on that, because for some reason the women got together and went, well, one man is going around doing all this, no men on the streets, stop being artists. But it was the level of that. The other thing was that they immediately assumed that they were sex workers being murdered because of where it was and who, all that. And then because the police were being really incompetent, they assumed that if anyone was attacked, they were a sex worker.
And that's the thing, many of them were not even. And even if they were, so what? They were still people being murdered. But it was this assumption that if you were attacked, you were a sex worker. And it was okay. It was acceptable. It was just absolutely unrelentingly vile. Really, really sad.
It was another one that it was just blow after blow after blow. It was great to watch.
Yeah, but
it was another exhausting watch, especially as you said, and that changed everything, being used as a repeated line.
Yeah, and that changed everything. Yeah,
Did
absolutely.
It really? No, it didn't.
And there was one of the women that was being interviewed. She looked at the circumstances. You know, there was one woman. She left her kids at home. The eldest was looking after them while she had a drink and went on a night out. And you know, just because she had a drink and she went out, it was basically like, does that actually mean that woman is a sex worker? Maybe that woman should have had a bit more support, and then maybe they wouldn't be having to go out and get a drink to get some precious dopamine that clearly life was not giving that poor thing. So there was just such a lack of empathy. Absolutely. That was exactly that. That was exactly our point. That was exactly our point. Absolutely.
But it was also it's not just the fact that sex murderers are being killed. I know.
Felf isn't yelling at us. Capitals. I agree.
No. But it's the fact that it's bad policing.
Yeah.
If you're trying to look for a common link between people and you make such a dumb assumption, you're going to look in the wrong places. And that was just one of the errors that built up and built up and built up in this whole case. And you get so frustrated by the end. Potentially that was the intention of the people behind the documentary. But again,
they spent so much money on things that ended up being a hoax as well, like the cassette tapes, but the written notes.
Definitely. Oh yeah. It's why my favorite on the loop we had going around. My favorite pick of that is just the woman pointing at a map, looking at a copper, just going, "There, you bloody idiot!"
Yeah.
Anyway.
But it went on for years. It went on for years, almost a decade. It felt like.
Yeah.
And one of my mum's friends was actually at university at the time, and she said I had no experience. We weren't allowed to go anywhere. We had to go in. If we did go, we absolutely had to go in groups of more than 2 or 3. And having your freedom curtailed so immediately when socially things were getting a little better for women, and then having it literally dragged into the dark ages. And I just feel so sad that I feel that we haven't really recovered from that.
If you can handle the utterly depressing nature of the content as an insight into the time, including the very, very sexist attitudes, absolutely worth it. Talking of things that lasted a decade.
Dum, dum, dum.
Dum, dum, boom.
The Terror.
The Terror.
So the Terror is on. The Terror is on BBC iPlayer. All of the episodes are on iPlayer.
2 years ago.
I think it did, didn't it? 2 or 3.
Do you want me to read the intro?
Yeah, you go.
Okay. Jared Harris heads up the cast of frankly way too many people to list here as the HMS Terror and Erebus, which should have been named Hubris, try to sail through the Arctic in the middle of winter.
Maybe not the best idea.
Things get steadily. Things start badly, then get worse in short but entertaining order, and just carry on from there. You've got halted polar bears, being stuck in ice for years, and the eternal stress of remembering you're in the Navy. That just drives the crew mad in a lushly produced 10-part costume drama from AMC, and we chained that for very different reasons.
Yeah, it was absolutely shocking. We were like, oh, let's give one a try, and then we were like, watch them all. Yeah, watch one at lunchtime. Don't watch it while you're eating because it's a little bit gruesome, but we did anyway because we're terrible people. So yeah, it focuses on Inuit people's mythos, and this being basically ravaged by white men, and they mistake making these bombastic speeches as quality of character, and the absolutely insane decisions made, taking the crewmen's health, their sanity, and their lives. It's just the ingredients to make a horror story about colonial times, let alone getting stuck in the Arctic. And I just think it's a great series that just gets its own back really, really well. I feel there was a tipping point for this insanity, which was there's one guy with the short beard you'll see in that guy.
Yeah.
Watch out for him.
Captain Cannibal.
Pickpocketing. Just watch out for him. To me, that is just when the floodgates of shite open in this series. But it's so fascinating. It's very dark in the cabin, like here. It's very white outside, full of snow and nothing else. But it's just so you don't know what's going to happen next. You don't know where things are going to go. You just have to keep an eye on it. It's very, very slow, and then things happen very, very intensely. And I'd absolutely recommend it. Our nickname for it was, shall we watch an episode of Spook Boot?
Yeah.
Which it was. And I couldn't remember the name, so I was searching for the horror. It's not called the horror. Basically, all you will get is horror films, and you won't get the terror. And that's what you need to look for on iPlayer.
I liked it. I thought it was a little... I thought it was a little by the numbers. Oh, the hubris of the white man, and oh, look how they, there was a little bit of like near the end. It got close to the noble savage tropes, which was like, all right, I could see that coming a mile off. the two things I really liked about it, and I've got to give absolute credit for this. Number one, I liked the way they handled the supernatural side of it, in that it wasn't necessarily supernatural. Now, I know you thought it was supernaturally driven. I thought it was people's imaginations and superstitions and the effects of the situation they were in. And the great thing is, it works either way. So I'm a huge fan of ambiguous narratives and unreliable narrators when done very well, and it was done very well here.
Yeah,
the other
absolutely.
thing, the other thing is, I didn't give a tuppence about the plot. I thought the performances were okay. It's a lavish costume drama, and it was quite by the numbers in its own little way. But the script, the actual language used, it was just a joy. The terminology of the language that kept me locked in.
Yeah, I think it was on a different plane, but could be similarly grouped into shows like Deadwood, that uses this oldie English, but with exceptionally sharp bits in it that you can still pick out.
There's another season coming up, which I believe is based on a Japanese wartime boat, and it looks like it's going to be. The AMC are basically trying to turn it into a new American Horror Story, and that it's going to be Shit Goes Bad on a Boat season 4.
That's cool.
The Evergreen or whatever.
That's great. So it's basically a spook boat anthology.
Spoopy Boat anthology.
That would make perfect sense, because I didn't realize why there were these Japanese artists in the picture selection on IMDb for season 1. Great. Now I understand. Brilliant. Well, I'll be watching
the only hope I've got for next time is it'll include more recipes. Anyway, moving on.
Meaty. What? So this brings us on to the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. What? I'm crying again. Stop it. Basically, have people in the chat, have you been able to catch up on the Winter Soldier, Falcon and the Winter Soldier on Disney Plus? So we've covered episodes 1 and 2.
We've seen episodes 1 and 2.
We have. I'm asking people in the chat if they have.
Yeah.
So it's on Disney Plus. It's an episode a week. It's mainly of interest to people that have seen all the Avengers and Captain America films. For me, it's a bit slow. It follows up from WandaVision, which we really, really loved. It's slow, sure, but there are some funny bits. And I think because I was used to seeing the Avengers and Captain America as action Marvel movies, Andy basically said, yeah, but it's a spy TV drama. And I'm like, of course it is. So shifted my focus now. This also happened off tangent. I was watching American Graffiti by what's his name, George Lucas, who did before Star Wars, and I didn't understand that as a film at all, because it was all over the place. But it's a narrative. It's an anthology narrative. So as soon as I start looking at the Marvel Cinematic Universe's TV series as also an anthology, not just in, doesn't have to just be action. It's an anthology of using these characters, so thematic anthology. So that's piqued my interest again, realizing that I'm judging it against what it's not, and I'm wondering whether a lot of the internet are doing that, because they definitely did that with WandaVision, didn't they?
Yeah, this is. I think people have to accept that they're doing something different, and this is what I like about this series. It is. WandaVision was great, and WandaVision was very different in that it was doing something exciting with TV. This is a buddy, a buddy show where it's the Odd Couple buddy show meets Mission Impossible.
I mean, at the moment they're not buddies at all.
No, they're not. That's what I'm saying. But they will. That by the end of it, they will be.
Yeah. So it's the build up to that for sure.
And the fact it's so different to WandaVision, because they've got a huge list of shows coming out. They've basically got a year of Marvel TV, one a week. And the fact that it's all going to be quite different, and that they're really going for it being all different. I'm glad this came out after WandaVision, because I think I wouldn't have been as excited because it would be a bit by the numbers, if that makes sense. So I think they made a good point of putting the weird thing up and establishing the fact that they can go big like that.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that they're keeping the lanes different. Like we're getting the Captain America lane, we're getting the supernatural magic lane. It's pretty interesting. US Agent hasn't done anything terrible yet.
Basically.
So we got to give him that.
So for me, it just seems a little bit too serious. I think after the complete art house delivery of WandaVision, I was like, oh, okay, we're going back to a little bit more. Yeah, hard to. But it seems serious. And what's happening with that new Captain America? What is happening?
We'll find out. We'll find out.
I guess so. I mean, are people happy with that weekly delivery? I mean, personally, I am, because otherwise I wouldn't get any work done. So, you know.
Yeah.
No, he's turning into a bit of an anti-Captain America at the moment, I think. Yeah.
I'm enjoying weeklies. I really am. I also think with this show they're being very interesting because one of the big things it's doing is it's addressing things, the post-blip world, and they're addressing it with some pretty interesting ideas, like the simple things like the logistics of half the population dying, then 5 years later not being dead. And how do you do insurance? How do you do inheritance? What happened if you're home? You know, you're home, someone moved in because you were dead. And then 5 years later, you aren't dead. They didn't suddenly reset the last 5 years. There's 5 years where half the population left and then came back. But it's also things like the impact of the people who didn't die. You know, the ones who spent 5 years living in this completely different world where, suddenly their labor was more valuable because half the world had gone. Suddenly they had more resources because half the world had gone. So it's interesting that they're actually exploring that element of it. And it's also interesting that they're kind of using it. They're not being blunt with it. They're doing their thing of addressing contemporary issues with it, which I think is great because to me, it's also got things about the veterans. It's doing the thing that Marvel normally does very well in that it's dealing with issues, but it's not being blunt about it as such, which I like.
It's dealing with things that the fandom would be thinking about, like how does insurance work post-blip? You know, those things are being talked about.
That's turned up so many times.
Absolutely.
On think pieces. So yeah, I don't know whether it'll be good. I don't know whether it'll be bad. I am excited for what it's doing. And yeah, I will say I think people's attitude towards US Agent at this point is a little bit preloaded. People who don't know the comics won't know why he's so awful, and we are yet to see what's to make him go awful. So far, he seems like a guy who's taken on a really big job. And there's going to be some natural, but you're not the real, you're not
the real Captain America or whatever.
Because Falcon was given it and all that. So I'm interested to see how it goes, and I'm hoping they're going to actually earn him being the bad guy in some way, rather than just have it given as an a priori. Speaking of bad people, sorry, let me adjust that.
Please go away, Candy Muse.
Oh God, Candy Muse. So yes, we're back on about this.
We're still watching Drag Race USA. It's still on Netflix. It's still season 13, which will end first. The worldwide global
3000 of season 12.
Will COVID end first, or will Drag Race USA season 13
will the sun burn out first?
What did you call it? Waiting for
drag racing for Godot.
So basically, yes, everybody. So Felf, this is Candy Muse, and she's on Drag Race USA. She has just cause drama week after week after week, and every week she's in, me and Andy are throwing our toast at the television. It's causing stress. But
she does things like wearing that.
Like, how did she stay? That was not even an outfit found from the trash challenge. That was an outfit that she had picked and brought for the runway. It doesn't make any sense. Yes, exactly.
I think I think Candy Muse.
No.
Candy Muse has got up my nose on the grounds that should have been eliminated like twice so far. She's been in the bottom half so many times, and she's still around. And honestly, it's really making me feel that the reason they're keeping around is because of the bitchiness.
It's got to be. It's the only reason, because she's in it for the drama, and the show are in on it too as well.
She's done pretty well in a couple of shows. She did pretty well recently, but it's still, you know, she's not won anything, and she's being kept around because she makes a good copy. And
this week was particularly awkward. She did redeem herself in the Miss Congeniality. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but no, I'm not going to go into detail. But today's episode on Netflix was a bit of a cringe fest. Yeah. So if you're one of these people that actually has a physical revulsion to too much cringe, you have to look after yourself when you're watching this episode that released today, because it's bad. Yeah. So even if Drag Race 13 is causing trauma, we've actually gone back to Drag Race Untucked, which is the gossip on the sofa. Yeah, you watch it over my shoulder. Come on. So there's extra gossip in it, spilling of tea on it. It basically adds a little extra to the past episodes. I'm really, really curious to know whether we're going to get a UK Untucked. I don't know what that would be like. But I think I'd actually rather watch Untucked for the last season. Yeah. This season is excruciating. It's really difficult. Yeah, it does feel a little bit like, this has got to be engineered. Like this.
They're editing to make him look worse than they probably are. Yes, happily accepted. And they know exactly what they're doing, happily accepted. But sometimes it just hits a point with me where I'm like, right, you've overdone it. I now just...
Yeah, that's it. I've run out of patience.
It's so obvious what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. If you're going to do it, don't make it obvious.
But thinking of more wholesome and positive things, because we're all about the positivity.
Yeah, we've got...
Aren't we?
Yeah.
Yes, after all that...
We're going to talk about something positive. Yay! We haven't talked about Gravity Falls on this show before, so hopefully everybody in the chat has watched Gravity Falls, and if not, definitely make sure that you do. So Gravity Falls was a 2-season animation, big on Disney, like XD, on the Disney Channel, on cable/satellite. It was big 7 or so years ago, but because not everybody had access to the Disney Channel in their set, like a lot of people missed out on it, including us. So we got Disney Plus. It's streaming now. It's on your app. It's cheaper than Disney. Disney Plus is a really good app because it's more accessible. It was something that, you know, wasn't around for everyone, whereas Disney Plus more so. It's only 2 seasons. It's absolutely hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. And I got to say, those last 4 episodes of season 2 were wild. I'd not seen anything done like that in a Western animation since forever on television. I cannot remember. And we were glued to it, weren't we, Andy? Absolutely glued. There was a laugh out loud moment, much like the Owl House. And the Owl House is made up from half the cast of Gravity Falls anyway. So
it was...
It's really wholesome. It's really funny. It's not for kids, really. It's for absolutely everybody.
Yeah. Carry on talking.
Dungeons, and more dungeons. That's it. I've done my thing.
I liked it. I especially Felflowne's hit Disney. It was the ending. It was the fact that they ended it really well. The guy who made it said, well, I've got this much story to tell, and he told it. It had a great sense of continuity. It had a great sense of vitality to it, and it worked. And it made me laugh my head off. It was a kid. It's that classic thing. It wasn't a childish show. It was I don't know. There's nothing wrong with liking shows like that when they're that good.
It's massively acceptable. Everybody should get in on it. I think.
Absolutely.
Your life will be better. Oh yes, the creator of the show is Hootie. Oh, and is the voice of Hootie also the little demon guy that I've forgotten his name in the Owl House?
I don't know.
I can do a good Hootie impression, but you can't do a Hootie impression without shouting. You absolutely have to shout. It's a bit wild, but yeah, it's funny. All the voices are hilarious, and there's actually a game on itch.io. It's a fan game that has the approval of the creators, and it's basically about Uncle Stan and the brother. It's so funny. Uncle Stan is a thing. You can get hugging pillows. You can play this kind of semi-dating game. Uncle Stan is the thing. I think it's one of the best things to come out of Gravity. It's so unusual, but it's so funny.
Anyway,
and, I'm so pleased. But anyway, we're at 15:59.
I hear the cry of the mole people. So before they get too hungry.
Meanwhile, in the creative corner.
Yes, once again, we trapped two wonderful creators and put them into the creative corner for a month. And here they are now, and they are representing. I think, is everyone's mic on? Do I have to?
Hello.
Yes.
Carol's on.
Representing the fine arts, we have Felflowne, and representing puppets, we have Carol.
Hello.
And thank you so much for joining us. Have you enjoyed your time in the Super Fortress so far?
It's been fun.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Also, Andy, are you not going to introduce the other person with Carol? Because that's very impolite.
Oh, this is Hildy.
Hello, Hildy.
Hildy, I'm sorry that Andy didn't introduce you.
I hadn't been introduced.
You're rude.
I think Hildy's got a fan club in 30 seconds.
That's it. Hello, Hildy.
We've only known her for 5 seconds, but we would kill everyone in the room and the building for her right now.
Absolutely.
Oh, for her. Right. Okay. Now we clarified that one. Do we go with the popular and start with the puppets?
Yeah, I think so.
Right.
Yes, please.
Okay. This is the section of the show where everything goes over now. He tries to. I'm hitting button. I hit button. Carol, please talk us through your amazing puppets, and we will.
Okay. Well, me and Gary, my husband, have been doing a YouTube channel called Puppet Vikings for the last 6 months or so. We are Viking reenactors, and due to circumstances beyond our control, there hasn't been any Viking reenactment for the last year. And because we couldn't do it, we thought these guys should do it instead. So let me introduce you to some of them. This is the troll.
I love those eyebrows.
He does a cooking program, Trolls Edibles, where he shows you recipes that could have been used by the Vikings. This is Einar.
Hello.
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 Einar the Boneless was the first of our puppets.
Oh, the Boneless. Is that based off the historical the Boneless? No.
That's where the name came from.
Right. Yeah. No, I recognise the name.
Will that be Ivar the Boneless?
It would.
Yes.
Einar is the character from the Viking starring Kurt Russell.
After him. The hyper-realistic helmets where that came from.
And boneless because, well, I haven't got any bones.
Fair enough.
Okay. We also have Brother Cedric.
Hello, Cedric.
Our Saxon monk. He exists purely to get beaten up, because that's what you do to Saxons.
The Johnny Knoxville of the Saxon puppet world.
And this is our Norman puppet, Odo du Fluffy. He also gets beaten up, but he's currently doing a series of Fighting Fit, which are exercises for reenactors so they can stay in practice when they can't go around hitting people.
So you're doing an exercise show for people with puppets?
Yes.
Fantastic.
He basically shouts at Gary and tells him what exercises he needs to do. And then he'll prance around the garden waving a sword and a shield and generally doing his thing. Then we have the Ravens, Mew and Hugh.
Hello.
Oh my god! I love
They're
them.
based on Hugin and Mugin, the Viking ravens that hung out with Odin.
Yeah, we just
Mew tends to ask all the stupid questions, and Hugh, well, Mew asks the questions, Hugh tells him the answers.
Fair enough.
That's pretty much our cast.
That's incredible.
That they all have different things. Hildy does some crafting and some storytelling. She's done a couple of Norse myths converted into poems that she's read to the others. I've already told you about Odo's Fighting Fit. Hugh and Mew have been doing the Havermal, which is a Viking. It's supposed to be the words of Odin. It's like a code to live by, a code of conduct sort of thing. As I've said, Troll does his cooking, and Einar does everything else. He's been out to watch us make longbows. He's been to a forge and managed not to catch fire. He's done all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And we took him to the Jorvik Centre when they were recently allowed to go for short visits to places. But yeah, these are the puppets, the Puppet Vikings. And basically they are just doing everything that we can't.
They're amazing.
I love it.
There's
Living
so many of
vicariously.
them.
Yeah.
I'm blown away.
Vicariously.
There seems
Yeah.
to be a lot
I'm
of
now
lot of
regretting
fire
my
involved.
decision to go second because I'm not going to be able to follow this. But let's
Oh,
continue.
you will.
Oh, stop.
When
I'd say-
Troll's doing his cooking, it's over an open fire outside. So we have quite a lot of incidents involving fire with
A
Troll.
little bit of singeing every now and then. So I
Yeah.
suppose there's. If anyone in the
no
audience has
eyebrows.
any questions or any comments, please throw them up. We will Carol can see the comments as well, so
Yep.
please hit it. God, he's so beautiful.
So vibrant.
The one at the very back is incredibly realistic.
Yes, I'm quite.
Seeing this.
It took me ages to make him.
I mean, the beard gives it away, but other than that,
Got an uncanny valley going.
yeah.
So, Carol, where did this all begin? Well,
Yeah,
I
when did you
married that
start?
idiot, basically. He has
You married
always
into
liked-
Vikings.
He has
Got it.
always liked puppets. We were both doing Viking reenactment, and I thought it would be fun to buy him a ventriloquist doll. That's a birthday present last year or the year before? Year before. And he kind of, well, it all mushroomed from there. We now have a house full of puppets. These are nowhere near all the puppets.
Oh my god.
I've got 2 Cthulhus, we've got 3 or 4 wolves, we've got a orangutan, we've got a chimpanzee, we've got a border collie. There's stacks and stacks of them. They are everywhere.
See,
oh my gosh.
see,
Oh, yeah,
Laura,
dinosaurs as well.
there is no law that says if you buy puppets, you have to get divorced. You are lying to me.
Say anything.
Laura, your lies have been uncovered.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
Oh, we gotta-
Andy's throwing me under the bus here, honestly.
I'm laying out all the secrets of all the horrors you've said about me and puppets. So,
lovely
question for
puppets.
Redheaded Rambler: how do you make the puppets yourselves?
Not entirely. We start off with a basic ventriloquist doll and then we customize it. So
Right.
all of the clothes have been made by us. Hildy didn't have this hair when we got her. That was added. And then the costumes, I don't know if you can see what she's wearing here, but this is all actual Viking kit to the same standard that I'd make for us to wear reenacting.
So
we've got
it's
linen, it's all hand stitched. The brooches were hand forged. The beads are all proper lampwork glass.
authentic puppet scale Viking clothing.
Yep.
Cosplay. It's cosplay puppets. That's
It's
what it is.
Yeah.
Cos puppets.
We
For
try
sure.
to make them as authentic as we can. We are starting to make our own. Troll is a bit more. He's actually a monkey puppet that we kind of added to, made him a
Right.
face. You can see.
Ah.
Oh yeah, he's a bit hairy.
But we figured trolls were allowed to be hairy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, then we sort of attached the mask and the hood and put the beads in his beard and made him a bit more Viking.
Wow.
And googly eyes, yes.
Do you do any work with UK heritage at all? Do you do any like? Because I'm just thinking, this is like something I've seen on the telly as a child. You know, I think this could be great for like educating kids about Vikings and engaging them. What do you think
That's
about that?
1,000%.
We're about to do next. Actually, we've been doing just.
Oh my goodness!
But lots of people have been saying that their kids want to be able to ask questions about Vikings for their work. So we're literally starting filming tomorrow for how to be a Viking, which will be just somewhere that we can do the bits of Viking knowledge that kids need for their history courses, and the bits that are fun and the bits that are a little bit gruesome, and all of that sort of thing.
They're gonna love it.
I've been watching some of your videos, and they are great fun. How? I'm guessing. I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How authentic is the information within it? Because obviously, like the talking birds and having a troll, probably not quite completely on spot, but the actual information given across. How
the actual information is as accurate as we can get it.
Right.
If you've watched we've recently done some where we were making Viking style headgear, the different hats. And we've always quoted the sources so people can go and look it up afterwards and do further referencing. With the dresses, we explained that they were based on the ones found at Burka in Sweden, and sort of explained how we got to what we've done here. The recipes, most of them come from a book called An Early Meal, which is entirely based on the archaeological finds at various Viking sites. So there's a section on Jorvik where everything is based on what they've found in the pits that they've dug out in Jorvik around the Coppergate area. So we do try to not only be authentic, but to explain where we're not, and to tell people where they can get the information from. Troll did make a mead trifle for Yule, which I have to admit was not remotely authentic, but it was fun.
They didn't have Bourgeois biscuits in the old days.
Well, coming around to your house for that next speed trifle, that sounds amazing.
It is. You've very alcoholic, so don't drive afterwards.
You've got your 2 sets, which people. I know you've already got a subscriber already. Hopefully, you might get a couple more.
Lizzie's in there. Yeah,
just like boom. I felt that hit on your sub button from here.
I'm presuming it's on YouTube. What's the YouTube channel name?
It's just Puppet Vikings.
Puppet Vikings.
Look at me searching for it now and adding it to my phone. There we go.
Just in Jorvik in Assassin's Creed. So more or less accurate than Assassin's Creed.
To be fair, Assassin's Creed isn't bad for authenticity. It's a lot better than most. It's not spot on, but it's not bad. Not bad at all.
I think as time's gone on, we've learned more and more, haven't we? Because I mean, I remember when obviously the information that people have about Vikings from their childhood is probably not as accurate as what we have now due to all the new discoveries that have been made. And honestly, I mean, I'm going to quote Tumblr here, but Vikings were like really ahead of the curve when it came to like treating women right and punishing people who were bad. Like it was. I mean, maybe that's not friendly for the children, but I'm all for some Vikings.
It can be presented in a child-friendly way.
Yes,
absolutely. For sure. You've got loads of videos. You've got almost 50 videes on your channel. That's incredible for just over half a year's work. That's absolutely astounding.
As someone who does editing of videos and all, trying to get it all together and knocking stuff up, even if they're shorts, that's still
a heck of a lot
of stuff. Yeah,
so much work. It's not
knows from her work. Yeah.
We've not been allowed to go anywhere. We've been bored. It happens.
Very true.
So
that being said, I haven't made a damn one.
Well,
this thing is thank you, COVID.
No, cut that, Andy.
No, it's just fun. We've had a blast doing it. It's kept us entertained, and it's given things that we can share with my grandkids, for example. They're a little bit young for really getting into the the history behind it, but they love Troll and they love Einar and they love Hildy, and they've got their own smaller version. So it's sort of for them, sort of for us, sort of just for the fun of it.
That's absolutely great.
How's it gone down with the Viking reenactment community?
Really well, actually. Yeah.
It should do.
When we first made the costume for Einar, I put him up on one of the really strict authenticity groups on Facebook, a Viking clothing page, and I was expecting to get like a whole load of that looks wrong, that looks wrong, that looks wrong.
Kind of gatekeepy comments, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Actually, everyone came back and was like, "Wow, that's better than a lot of reenactors we see at events." And
oh my god!
But it's a lot smaller. It's easier to make. Like, no, fine. I'm taking all your praise.
Wow, that is high praise, because it is terrifying to put stuff out these days. It really is. So bravery on everyone's behalf. But I'm so pleased
if
the
you
community reacted so supportively.
What are we looking at?
You can see here that
you're just getting bang, 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 bang.
It's all made of right fabrics. This is actually wool, hand-dyed wool at that. The tablet weaving I did myself. The braids are a different type of wool. He's got the right under tunic with the right fastenings, the right braid types, the linen trousers. The leg wraps aren't quite right. If you can see, they're raw edge.
I'll take your word for it, Carol. They look great to me.
Other than that, it is.
When you're making the costumes for it, are you using authentic tooling or as well as techniques, or is it just authentic techniques and materials?
To be fair, there's not an awful lot of tooling that goes into it. It's a needle, so it's a needle and thread. It's entirely hand sewn.
Right.
We use the appropriate materials. We use linen threads. We use linen fabrics or wool fabrics, and the needle, I think, it is a modern needle. It's got a gold eye, but it's exactly the same size and shape as it would have been back in Viking times. So it's as close as you can realistically get. To be fair, the shoes weren't remotely authentic. That was a bit of brown leather off a sofa. Pretty sure the Vikings didn't do that.
I hunted that sofa.
I think if the Vikings were to find a sofa, they would have made. Well, they'd have sat on it.
They'd have been like 40 shoes in that.
Jeez.
We've even made the Viking accessories. This is you can see it's got the wooden bits at the top.
Yeah,
that's based on a find at Hedderby, that they actually found handles like these. And we made ones for us, so we made them to match for the puppets as well, so they can carry their stuff in a proper Viking Hedderby bag.
Awesome!
I'm just blown away. This is so awesome.
Made for them all sorts. Yeah, it's great. It's been so much fun. It really has, and it keeps me out of trouble.
Yeah.
So, Carol, how did you get into reenacting, specifically Viking reenactment? What was that meeting your partner as well, or was that?
No, I was doing it before he was actually. It basically started because I knew someone who did it, and it sounded really cool. So when they said, "Come along and try it,"
awesome,
I did. And that was nearly 30 years ago now. So it's been a bit of an obsession ever since then.
That's so cool. I mean, because obviously there's a big difference between, a lot of my friends are LARPers, and there's a big difference between LARPing and reenactment, as I'm sure you are aware. But do you want to, like, for people who maybe aren't aware, could you maybe like lay out some differences between LARPing and reenactment for the peeps at home?
Yeah, LARPing is in some ways more fun because you're a character, you're interacting with people, and you get to effectively live the character for the duration of the LARP. With the Viking reenactment, you're usually talking to members of the public somewhere like a castle or a fair or something, so it's not as fully immersive. The stuff has to be as authentic as you can get it. So if I go along to one of the big shows, I can't wear my glasses, I have to cover my hair because it's dyed. You have to be as accurate as you possibly can. And it's not very easy to be accurate because we don't have an awful lot of evidence. And a lot of places require you to be able to quote at least 2 sources for anything that you're using.
Right.
An awful lot
very
of things.
Scientific,
yeah. There is literally no evidence that the Vikings ever wore hats.
at all.
If you go by that they found a couple in Holland which weren't actually from the Viking Age, and they've found one that was worn by a saint, the Nalbinded hat, which is the Viking version of knitting, but because there's only one and it's in a unique clerical context, you can't say that they wore hats, although I think it's pretty obvious that they wore hats.
It was cold, right?
Probably have disintegrated by now.
Exactly.
I do have one question on the subject of authenticity. Do you have any records of Viking puppets? Did the Vikings have puppets?
I can't quote the exact details of where they're from, but yes,
cool.
They had at least dolls that they could use as puppets, and there are some that are jointed, so were probably used more like a puppet than a regular doll.
Do you have any intention of either acquiring or making one of those and using it in the shows, or are you going with the more contemporary, fluffy look?
It's something that we're definitely interested in, so we probably will try it at some point. But I kind of like these.
Yeah. Oh no complaints, no complaints. Pure curiosity. That is so cool.
There's a comment from Redhead Ramblings. Vikings invented ball-jointed dolls.
I just wrote below it ball-jointed day.
Amazing,
well,
amazing.
We also have a question. How does one join the Puppet Vikings as Drenga?
As a Drenga.
As a Drenga.
I'm probably saying that wrong.
I don't know what a Drenga is. Drengr.
No idea. No idea.
Okay.
I don't know. Lizzie,
do you mean on that one? I'm not recognising the word either.
I thought it would be something relevant. Never mind. Ignore me. I soon go away. So how
it could be a typo. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Give it another go, Lizzie.
How long does it take to make the costumes for these dolls, and to do the conversions? I mean, how much time are we looking at?
Quite a while. Einar, we didn't do much conversion to. He was already, the body was right. The tunic, I spent a weekend role playing online, and I was sewing while I was doing it, and that was enough to get the basic tunic done. And then the braids had to be made and added afterwards. They were probably another 8 hours or so went into the braids. It takes ages to set up a tablet weaving sort of loom. Gary had to make me a inkle loom to start off with as well, which didn't help. That was just me being unprepared. The dress for Hildy, the underdress took me about a day, and the overdress actually was quite quick because it was something that I'd already made and just cut down and adapted. So that was probably another 2 or 3 hours, because everything has to be hand sewn, and it is just time consuming. Very
no machine, no. One of the comments was about bone needles. So I guess that was one of the sharper tools back in the day. Bone needles.
Bone needles are not fun to work with.
I can imagine so.
They blunt so quickly.
I tend to use bone needles for nail binding, which is like the Viking version of knitting,
right?
But not for sewing with. Like they're too fragile; they just break. No. They need to have metal needles as well. So quite fine to use those.
That would make sense. I'd imagine it'd be like a needle where you'd weave with it or crochet with it or something, as opposed to like sewing. Yeah.
This one took me weeks because I had to hand knit the chainmail.
Wow.
It looks really good though. It looks like chainmail.
It's wool, but it's the pattern that the BBC used for things. It's called the armour stitch. And it's literally a BBC knitting stitch to make chainmail with.
Incredible.
As used by an extensive amount of LARPers who don't want to wear chainmail.
Doctor Who Battlefield.
Back in, like, we're talking Monty Python and the Holy Grail, most of those are knitted.
Yes, absolutely.
Only the king has a chainmail thing because it's just too heavy.
And expensive.
Right?
I do make chainmail in metal, but if you think about it, you're going to be holding it on one hand.
Oh my god!
A lot of chainmail.
You have a really muscular arm.
Yeah,
and a really...
I was going to say like a Popeye arm or something. Just one.
Whole hand.
That's why we went with wool. And I would
dual wield the puppet
with aluminium at some point, but maybe not yet.
We got a follow up on the Drenga comment. Here we go. I'm possibly mispronouncing it. Drenga is one of our favourite words in Old Norse. There is no higher compliment in Old Norse than to call a man or woman a Drenga, which in the sagas implies both reckless courage and a code of fair play.
Sounds like it's mad lad. You're a mad
lad.
We now know the Old Norse for a bit of a bloke.
Absolutely.
I think
that's great.
Give me if I'm wrong, but I think the Norse splintered from the Vikings, didn't they? Rather than being Viking, or it gets
Viking is technically a job title.
Right.
Being a Viking meant going out on the raiding party. You went a Viking. So it was pretty much any of the Germanic tribes could be considered Vikings at various times. But when they came here, that's when we tend to date the Viking age from, which is from when they first raided Lindisfarne through to
because they didn't have any decent mead.
Absolutely.
That's why I know the name Lindisfarne. I was like, why is that so familiar? Oh, mead.
Oh, Lindisfarne mead. Yeah.
This is not even real mead. Terrible. They make wine and put honey in it, which isn't mead. Mead is fermented honey.
Yeah.
You have to
hang on.
Sorry,
so
Andy,
Viking. I was going to say Viking is a job title, much like ninja, which therefore means you could use Viking as an adverb, much like ninja.
Yep, you could.
Cool. So you could totally Viking someone in the face. This makes me happy.
Andy, wouldn't you like them in the face?
No, because
like them in the face.
ninja is a job and an adverb, and therefore Viking is a job. It can also be an adverb.
This is all getting very linguistically complicated. Someone called Falcon.
I'm not as complex as Falcon. This all came from the COVID. I know you have done. You're doing all your full scale stuff the rest of the time. Do you think once we enter the after times, you will carry on with this, or
Absolutely.
Is it a stopgap? Or cool.
No, we are looking forward to being able to go to all the different reenactment events with the puppets. It's going to be so much fun. And there are like different events all around the country that we go to as Vikings, and we'll be filming them for YouTube, but with Einar doing voiceovers and talking to the different people at them. And I think we're going to annoy lots of people, but it's going to be hilarious.
Are you going to have Are you going to have the authentic ye olde Punch and Judy Viking tent?
It's like your sauces, Andy. We need at least 2 for that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm coming.
I don't know history. Yeah,
we have already been to a couple of things like with him. Like I said, we went to Oldfield Forge and spent a day making things, and I made a lucette, which is a Viking break making tool, and Gary made a spear, and Einar came along and sat there watching, and every so often we'd pick him up and wander around and talk about what people were doing. So that's the sort of thing we'll want to do when we can go places again. And we also went to a local street fair thing from the local meadery in Peterborough. They had a load of different stalls set up, and we took Einar along to that and went around and talked to people, and that was great fun.
Alcohol and
you're near Peterborough, are you?
Yes.
I've got family there. I'll have to tell them to look out for you.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, we're not too far away from the Super Fortress. Isn't pitched too far away from there as well, so we are there for meads and puppets, that's for sure.
Please go and meet them all and take photos when
absolutely,
yeah.
It will be great to be able to go along to things like the big Viking reenactment events and go around and talk to all the different people doing the different reenactment displays and the different authentic traders and the like. It's something I'm looking forward to once we're allowed to interact with other people.
Yeah.
The internet has allowed you to do that over this period of time, which has been wonderful.
Yeah.
What video has been the one that you've either had the most fun making, or you've felt, or you think is most proud? Because apart from anything else, you've got an audience now who've got like a lot of videos to get through, and they want to get right to the good stuff. So
my favourites are the funny ones, which tend to be Troll cooking. His edibles are usually quite funny, and I really like the two ravens, Hugh and Mew. that their little Havermal shorts I've really enjoyed. If you're into the reenactment stuff, then the Viking hats is probably a good place to start, because again, there you can actually see things that you can go away and use and make your own, which is fun if you're a reenactor, because you can then sort of show them where you got the pattern from, and watching the video tells you all the different sources that's being referenced. So it's quite a good way to kind of learn how to do reenactment costuming.
Cool.
So those are the ones that I like best.
Does anyone?
I have one question that's arguably not on topic, but I have to ask. Did I see on your Instagram, Carol, that you have a sighthound?
Not anymore.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
We had an absolutely gorgeous whippet who unfortunately died about 18 months ago.
So sorry.
Now.
That's real. Your Instagram was what I was looking for when I was looking for you, and I was like, oh, she's got dogs.
We still have dogs. We have a rather gorgeous border collie and a Carpathian Shepherd cross. He's a rescue from Romania. Oh, wow. He makes an appearance in Hildy's dressmaking video. He jumped up to admire the dress at the end.
Well, I'm definitely watching that one then.
And the landlords have a Caucasian Shepherd, a huge bear of a dog, sort of Newfie-sized furball thing. Oh. And she turns up in the Mead Trifle video. So
I hope you're paying attention, people. Dog timestamps. Carol's giving you the dog timestamps.
Absolutely. Even more reasons to watch these videos. That's awesome.
And obviously, when we go to events, the dogs come with us, so they will crop up in videos, whether we want them to or not.
Do we have any more questions from the audience? If we don't, not a problem. I'm 100% sure I'll hit Carol up on the video. She will answer anything more. So if you don't have them now, don't worry. A lone that man appears in the background, which is all.
He just came in and tried to whisper really quietly, and then he's like walking behind me, and I'm like, I can see you.
Why aren't you watching my show, you dick?
He will be in a minute. Watch the show, Andy says. You're a jerk if you don't. We've got errands to run. What's more important than this? Sorry. Oh, look at that dragon lad.
404 error. The dragon has a fan club.
He's about to get a smoking jacket and little hat so he can look more
smoking.
I think.
We've broken Red-Headed Rambler. Fantastic.
Right.
He's gone. Yeah, on that note of people entering Puppet Overload. Puppet Overload has been achieved. So to calm things down and have a more mellow and serious discussion, let's move on to the fine art section with Felflowne.
Fine art. I told you when I said it was fine art, Andy, what I meant was it's fine. Like it's not good, it's fine. You may have misunderstood what I said. Okay, so I'm not sure how Andy has loaded up the photos. I was expecting
the batch together. I've got I sent you a message.
You did, but I was expecting them to be in a video like the previous bits of the show were, so I wasn't sure how it
I've got them dialed up to go through so you can.
Oh, okay. Right, well, in that case, ask me things. I'm ready. I'm not as prepared as Carol, but I will go.
But she hasn't stalked you online, is what.
Yeah, I tried to stalk her before we started, and I found literally every social media except YouTube. So all of her social medias were really out of date, and I'm like, these aren't right. What am I going to
do? Away from that, we have this. So in the creative corner, we got Felflowne. You do a lot of line art. You do a lot of marker art. You're doing a lot of. Would you say as fan art driven or fan art derived, or how would you describe
inspired or classically inspired, perhaps with
I don't know. I mean, I have certain issues that cause me problems when I'm trying to create. So it's quite useful for me to use these art challenges that are going around. I don't know if people have seen these. So what will usually happen is it will be an entire month, which is a really long time. I know you know, but you don't know until you've had to draw a drawing every month. Like it's a long time. And that way it means that I can put more structure into the artistic process. I have friends who will just sit down and art falls off them like dandruff. It's incredible. And
who are these people?
You know most of them, Laura.
The one who drew us. I'm like, I don't do this.
So,
I mean, sorry, go on, Andy.
No. I was going to say. So you're using you. I've seen in your work you do a lot. You do stuff like the Inktober or the many variants on because there are issues. To why reason
Oh,
people
there's
might
loads
not
of
do
challenges
Inktober.
that aren't, that aren't in Inktober.
That is the one that I'm aware of as the big one. I mean, are there now major challenges that you can do through the year? Is it?
I mean, you'll be hard pushed to find a month that doesn't have a challenge associated with it. People tend to try and pick things that are, that fold into the month either thematically or alliteratively. So one that's popular is Monster March. So there'll be like a list of 31 different monsters, and you just have to tackle them. You don't even have to do it in order. You just have to tackle them as you wish. My friend. Fellow artist Studio Chai came up with the challenge of Centaugust, which is what this one is from. I know, it's good. See what I mean about the words fitting? It's great.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Last year she did it, and she made up the prompts, but I made up the the graphic that went with it. And she chose, I think she chose like a fantasy theme. So it was all like spirit and flowers and stuff like that. Whereas last year, sorry, gosh, no, time isn't real anymore.
Time is a construct.
So last August, she did her challenge, but every single day was just a different type of flower. So what I could have done is, sorry, go on. No,
you carry on.
I'll fight you. Anyway. So what I could have done was just gone through and drawn centaurs that were based on those flowers, which arguably is what I did. But as people who've maybe seen my stuff before know that I can't resist making something complicated. If I can complicate it, I will. So for a quick example, this one there was day 22, chrysanthemum. So I went and looked into chrysanthemums as a flower, what their social uses were, what they are used for now, where they come from, this kind of thing. Not every flower has an interesting story behind it, but chrysanthemums apparently are very popular in the United States as a congratulatory flower. And they're also called mums, which is very confusing to Brits because mums is your mum.
Yeah.
Right? But apparently chrysanthemums are only not seen as a congratulatory flower in the southern states, specifically in New Orleans.
Right.
And in New Orleans in like the 1920s, late 1910s, obviously the Spanish flu was happening. Lots of people were dying. There was a lot of horrible stuff going on. The war had just ended, this kind of thing. And so I chose as my person, I chose someone from that period of time. I dressed them as they would have been dressed at that time. I gave them, I made them a black guy because obviously that is the the demographic, the ethnic makeup of that town. And I actually modeled the horse on a horse that is local to that area because it's a very swampy area. And this is called it's got it's an amazing name, like a sulky or something. I'll look it up in a minute, but you're not that interested, but whatever.
So talking about.
So there's a lot of stuff going on in here. The fact that he's holding chrysanthemums, but they're dead, because a lot of chrysanthemums were being used in New Orleans at that time, and they were not able to get as many as they wanted. And the ones that there was a tale that apparently chrysanthemums there was a blight at the same time, so the ones that you could buy were not very good.
Oh, that's so sad.
It is
sad. Just finished the war, just having the COVID-esque flu. Even something as simple as a flower to bring joy was being affected by that time. That is really sad.
Which is why I gave him the sad expression as well, because I said, I don't know what's going on. Maybe he lost a brother in the war. Maybe he lost his family to the flu, and although I've just remembered the name of the horse, it's a Marsh Tacky, which is an amazing name. So I basically cut all of those things, and I kind of, it's a challenge to get them all into one drawing. And that's what I did with this one. I don't know how many of my drawings Andy has put in. Don't worry, I don't have such a long story. Oh no! Well, I'll be quicker on the others. But I just wanted to explain what my process is like, because I like to tell a story. So
it gives it extra depth as well, like a poem. I'm not saying that to be all fancy schmancy, but like you read into a poem and then you read, well, where was the influence of this? What does this mean? Is this a metaphor for this? It adds those extra layers, and that's what's great.
I like the fact that you as the artist don't know why they're crying.
No,
that means even you can look at it and still we got another We're getting hydrate bombed over on the chat.
I finished my tea.
I like that you can then come back and look at it and still wonder about it. That I think is fascinating. So you're theoretically putting these out once a day. I mean, how many hours of research did you put into this?
I mean, the thing about the internet is that the research is so fast, and Carol's probably found this too when she's looking up sources and stuff, is it's easier than it's ever been to go and find who said this, when did they say it, who else has said it, this kind of thing. Because I work in, and you guys know, but maybe the people at home don't, I work for a university and I work in the research department. So I'm aware of how research is gathered, how it's peer reviewed and this kind of thing. And having the internet makes it so easy. Like, I mean, and this information is all there. Like, for some of the other flowers, there wasn't so much of a historical aspect, but there was an interesting thing about where their names come from. Like, there's a picture I haven't included, but the one I did for cornflower, the Latin name includes the part of the name is Centaurus. So I was like, why? You know, like, why is it Centaurus? Like, I didn't know that, so I googled it, and apparently it's because cornflowers, they were used in potions by the centaur whose name I can never remember, but the one who was an amazing medic back in Roman mythology and Greek mythology, whose, again, name I can't remember, but he was one of those weird centaurs who had feet at the front instead of hooves. Don't like that, Rome. Don't do that. Yeah, so that was what his name was. But I mean, you go to Wiktionary and that's 5 minutes work. You know, like the research is actually getting the research and getting it organized is the quick part. Chiron, yeah, Chiron. You're right. Yomiko, thank you. Yeah, Chiron. I always think Chiron is someone else, but yeah, Chiron the sun.
Chirona.
Or Chiron. I'm not sure how you say it, but
so yes, you're putting that in, and it's adding a huge extra level of depth to it, but it's not putting much extra time onto the actual work.
I mean, no, I don't think so, because I'm one of those people who, if I just sat down with a pencil, drawings don't come out of me. I have to know what I'm doing. I have to have an end goal in mind. And the drawings that I draw when I don't have anything in mind they may look okay, but to me, they're just soulless. You know, they've got nothing to them. Could you put up the next picture, Andy? I can't remember which one the next one is.
Yeah.
That's just intense.
I chose this one because I thought you guys might appreciate the story behind this one. So this is 19, which is Iris. So, and as you can see, there's irises all over this one. You can see them all over the place. And there's a rainbow on the floor because Iris is the goddess of the rainbow, as most people maybe do know or don't know. But yes, Iris is the goddess of the rainbow. So I was like, I'm going to draw 7 centaurs, 1 for every color of the rainbow. And then there's a slight part of me that's just like, that's a terrible idea. I was like, you're right. You've got you want to draw 7 centaurs? That's 28 legs. Are you? Wait. No, wait. Hang on. Wait.
A lot of legs.
4 times 7. Do it in my head. Oh, no, it is 28. I was right.
28. 14, 21, 28. Yeah.
Oh my god. I thought that was 8 times.
It is lots.
It's a lot. It's many. So I was just like, okay, so what I'm gonna compromise, and I'm gonna do a fewer than 7, and I'm gonna make them more My Little Pony like in the way that they are formed.
Shouts to Jezebel Arts.
Hey Jess.
Hi Jess. It's my babe.
And Lyoko has turned up.
Hey Lyoko. Yeah. So
You were saying
you already did what to him?
Shouted.
Oh, I misheard that. Anyway, let's carry on.
Continuing.
So continuing on, so there's a few aspects in this drawing that I wanted to draw people's attention to. One is obviously the rainbow in the puddle. That is a reference to Disney's Fantasia, where Iris appears at the end of the section that is the Pastoral Symphony. You know, the one with all the unicorns and the Pegasus. She appears at the end, and you see her go across the sky, and the rain falls, and it's rainbow rain. So there are rainbow puddles, which I thought was awesome, and I love that film. So then I thought, what other films have got colourful horses in them? And I thought, what about Wizard of Oz? You know, the horse of a different colour. When they get to the Emerald City, you know, the cabbie is there with the horse that is, I think, to start with grey, but then it turns and he's like purple, and then another shot he's red. And obviously horse of a different colour is just a phrase that means, oh, that's something totally different, but they took it literally. So the 4 colours of these horses are the 4 colours that horse turns in the Wizard of Oz. So 3 different colour changes. And did you know those horse colours were coloured with gelatin powder? jelly powder because dyeing was unkind to the horses, and so in the scene where he's purple, you can see the horse literally licking his lips like crazy because he tastes delicious. So he's just there like la, 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 because his whole muzzle must be like grape flavored, so he's enjoying it immensely. Also, I didn't realize, but there's several horses because they couldn't afford to keep washing the same one and putting the gelatin powder on it. So every horse is a different horse. It's just like they quickly put it back into the syrup, which I thought was amazing. So yeah, there's a lot going on in this picture, which but also, you don't need to know any of that.
That's
but knowing it makes it better.
Gelatin isn't made from horses' hooves, is it, or is it?
I honestly don't know. That was something I hadn't even considered for it.
I think it may have been one of the sources of gelatin at the time.
Oh no, it's cows more than horses.
It's mostly cow.
Yeah,
depends when. Anyway.
Horses is kind of glue factory, isn't it?
Yeah,
horses so it's not glue. At least it's not glue. That's fine.
I'm going to move on to the next picture before we start talking about false cannibalism.
Sorry, I didn't mean to traumatize anyone.
No, this one is so...
Oh, so sweet.
Oh, wow, I love that.
1920s style, right?
Yes. Yeah? No, I need to remind myself. I should have read up on my own drawing before I... So, this is Poppy. The reason her face is slightly blotchy is because she's much smaller than the other ones. I don't know why I drew her so small, but it means that any kind of irregularities in the drawing can be seen a bit more closely.
So when you're drawing them, what mediums are you using for it?
That's a really good question. Probably something I should have started with, but hey ho.
No, you're doing great.
So I don't know if you guys can see. There's a bluish tinge to her skirt. Can you see that?
Yeah.
That's because I draw in blue pencil and I don't erase it usually, because I find that if I draw in blue pencil and then I draw over it in inks, if I then rub out the blue pencil, it can lighten the line and just. I then have to go over it again. And if you know how I ink like 3 times anyway. So I do not want to add another inking round to it. So I tend to add the blue lines. I leave the blue lines where they are because usually my alcohol markers will cover them entirely, unless like here, it's a pale color. But honestly, I just think it's just part of my art and I don't see it as a failing. It's just,
I think it adds a nice tone to it. It gives it a bit of,
and it shows the work in it, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a bit like, it reminds me a bit of those, like, you know, animation cells, and that's something I've always liked. So so Poppy, so obviously she's wearing a poppy, as you can see, the poppy that's been made familiar by you know, things like Help the Heroes and the British Legion. But interestingly, the poppy was made popular and started by a French woman whose name I'm very ashamed to say I can't remember, but she was going around even before the war had ended, raising awareness for French war orphans who had died, whose parents had died in the First World War. And so because that was the end of the First World War, so it was about 1920s. So as you're right, whoever pointed out that this is 1920s fashion, that is 100% correct. So I based it on like things like Coco Chanel, and the straight up and down line is because corsetry was finally starting to not be a thing that women were expected to wear all the time after the war. So that's why they kind of really relished that whole like, yeah, I'm not wearing a corset, what are you going to do about it? I look like, you know, a sack and I'm doing it beautifully. And so that's what she did. And so I based her clothing off Coco Chanel, and the period and the fact that it was France is why I picked Coco Chanel, because that's a French designer.
The weird thing is that the remembrance flower in France is the cornflower.
Interesting, isn't it? Yeah. It's almost like we took that and the French were like, well, we don't want that anymore. So we're going to do our own thing. No, that's really interesting, Carol. I didn't know that. It's dangerous to center your own country too much, I think. But sometimes you just have too many tracks going on in your brain and you forget something. I did not know that. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm being attacked by a dog.
We happily accept the dog. So these are so you do the initials in blue pencil.
Yes.
And then did you say you use alcohol-based marker pens?
I use Staedtler inking pens to do the lines.
So
I use them. They are solid.
So this is all physical media. You don't use digital.
No, none of this is digital. The only digital part of this was when I scan them in, I will tidy them up. So the background, the white has been cleared. So obviously, like if there were any smudges or anything on the paper, or even paper doesn't scan completely white. So Laura will know this from scanning pictures. Like just making sure, like the little bit in the tail, you see where it kind of separates from the leg, that is cleared as well, because that's easy to miss. So yeah, that kind of stuff. And then sorry, go on.
They have a certain digital quality. I don't have the language to describe this correctly, but they have a certain digital quality to them.
I think it's because Felt's lines are so sharp. Honestly, I think yeah, definitely.
I have been told that before, and the way I colour in marker as well is very flat.
It's almost translucent.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, it's so pleasing and neat and good to look at.
I'll move on. I'll move on quickly from this one. But the only other thing of interest on this one is the fact that so obviously during the war, the First World War, that's one of the last wars that horses were ever used in seriously. Like it became clear during the First World War that horses were not really suitable for warfare as it was then. And they had a lot of horses passing away of things like preventable injuries, and like they would get like infected injuries. So what they did was they shaved all of the horses that were in the trenches, and then they all died of exposure. So they were like, right, okay, that's not great. So what they ended up doing was this, what they call the trench cut, which they've got on this horse. You can see the bottom part are very shaved. So that's what they did. That was their compromise between being able to, you know, not get too much mud in their fur, but not freeze to death. So yeah, that's this one. This is and there's a lot going on in this one.
There's a lot going on. It's very serious. So moving on to the next one, which isn't quite so serious.
Good. That's why I didn't give you all serious ones.
Could you give us the full background detail on this marvelous work?
I would love to, because for all the serious drawings that I've given you, Andy, one of my favorite things to do is to draw comics, to draw cartoons, to make people laugh, because I have a little book which Laura gave me, actually. She probably doesn't remember. She gave it to me at MinamiCon and said, you like sparkly things, right? What you should never do is give someone with an undiagnosed neurodiversity something that they can fiddle with, because I didn't stop fiddling for it for 2 days. So it's one of those things where you can do the sequins back and forth. So in this notebook, yes. In this notebook, I write down every little comic idea I have. One of them I wrote down yesterday was, there is no hoodie big enough. And it's because I keep getting adverts for hoodies that are bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm like, no, bigger. They have to be larger. I can never have a house.
Yeah.
Literally put my house inside a hoodie and I will live inside it. But this was the first thing I drew after a really long art hiatus, and it was also I had not been playing my computer games, and I'd lost touch really with a good friend of mine, and we just suddenly went, look, you know what, let's get together and let's go online and let's play a game together. So we booted up World of Warcraft. We both rolled characters that were the same race. We decided that they were sisters because that was fun, and their personalities just kind of came out as we were playing. So the character on the right is my friend's character, whose name is Viconi, and she wears a butterfly costume everywhere, which is ridiculous because why would you do that? And then the one on the left is my character, who's a monk and is just running around being like, seriously, stop pulling things. Can you just do what you like? So we came out of it and I was just like, I have this very much someone will die. Oh, fun kind of and, which is not my source material. It's definitely from something. I can't remember what exactly it's from, but I was like,
it wasn't Community.
It might have been. Yeah, it's definitely an American show, but I was like,
it was definitely funny.
Yeah, so this was a very quick drawing. You can see I didn't use many lines, and the lines are the colors very like bleh. But I do envy people who can draw quickly and have it not be terrible. That's not me, unfortunately. Yeah. So yes, I like to capture a character in their face. You know.
I do know your comic side of stuff because I did have the honor of you doing the competent artistry for
Meat
Prison Souffle.
That's the only book I've ever been in. I've never had my art printed in any other book other than Andy's. Book,
Needlessly Aggressive Products, Meat Prison Souffle. Is the book. It has got a amazing Felflowne original.
Special guest star Felf.
He sent me a message going, Claire, you know that like I draw stick people, right? And I was like, what's your point? And he's like, nothing.
It was great. But let's move on to the next one. So this is that's a different That's somewhat of a different style.
Is it a Pokemon?
Yes, it is. I can't remember how many of these cards I gave you, but you can
me
show
3.
them all. You can show them all because none of them have a very big story behind them.
Okay.
This was another art challenge that Studio Jai put together. Instead of Inktober, she decided to do Poketober, and she chose all Pokemon who were like spooky or ghosty, and which was fantastic, you know. And so October has 31 days, but that particular October had 5 Sundays in it, which is not always a thing that happens. So you take the 5 out of the 31 and you're left with people at home. How much you left with?
24. I didn't know there was going to be so much involved today.
Wait, 26, right?
Oh god.
Yeah, 26.
27, 28,
so my brain was like 26. So if you're doing 26 weekdays, if you draw 2 drawings a day, that would be 52, and that's an entire deck of cards, and that's something I've always wanted to do, always, and I've just never had any kind of drive to do it. But I was like, here's a perfect opportunity where I have 52 things to do. So in conjunction with Natasha's 25 plus 5 prompts, I added my own 26 more, and I did 2 cards a day, and every Sunday was a joker. And this is one of the jokers. What's the next one, Andy? There's one more, I think.
There's one more which just looks so slinky.
Yeah.
That is so slinky.
Oh, that's Leafeon, yeah. So what I started doing with these was I started trying to draw them at the size of a playing card. No, not a good idea. So you're saying everything's done like like everything's done like traditionally. Yes, everything was done traditionally, but these things were put together digitally. So the cards were a completely separate part. And the drawing was shrunk to fit. Obviously, I had to do it in the right kind of, aspect ratio to make it work. But yeah, you can see the earlier ones, which I didn't show you, I didn't send you any of, because they aren't that good. Where I obviously had to draw really, really tiny, and the art has suffered for it. So yeah, but I sent you some ones that I was quite pleased with. And I did finish this challenge, and I was super happy about it.
Are you going to get it made into a deck, or...?
I don't know. If I do, it might be just for me, because these are not my characters, and this is not the time to go into a discussion about fan art. I'm not going to do it. But I've never been comfortable making money off somebody else's IP, So, but what I might do is actually every single joker behind it, I don't know if you spotted it, but it's got like candy or like a sweet or a Halloweeny kind of treat. Now that design I thought might make a really good washi tape, so I'm not sure.
Oh yes. Also fabric print. Yeah.
Now you got me thinking, Laura.
Yeah, those repeat patterns. Absolutely. And I know how to do that in Photoshop if you need a hand with repeat patterns.
Thank you.
That's fine. Yeah, it's once you realise, you're like, oh, that's easy. But it's knowing how to do it's the process for sure.
The question I would have is, you're doing all these based off challenges. What makes, in your opinion, an art challenge make you go, ooh, I want to do that one? What are you looking for? What makes an art challenge make you go, ooh?
Yeah,
that's a really interesting one, actually. Because I think first of all you have to work out, do I have the mental capacity and the time to do it? I tried to do 2 challenges at once last March, and I had to give one up, and I was really sad about that. It was my own fault. Both of the challenges were fantastic. One of them was an isometric challenge, so you basically had to draw little isometric like scenes. So one of them was like dungeon, and one of them was like marketplace, and like you would for old little 8-bit games. I loved doing it, but I couldn't do it, so I had to stop.
It's really intense. It gives you burnout, so don't feel bad about it. It's just something on pause that you can pick up the next time for sure.
Yeah, and I think that I need the pressure sometimes of the art challenge, because especially if a friend is also doing it, which is where Natasha, Studio Chai, and I often bounce off each other and do a lot of cross promoting and things like that. I guess the challenge for me is like, what can I do that makes it mine? If that makes sense. There was one I didn't send to you, but it was I did a unicorn bestiary for June last year.
Oh, nice.
I basically picked a different animal for every single day and made a unicorn version of that animal, and then wrote a story about it as if it was in a bestiary. So it was a writing challenge and a drawing challenge, because why do I do this to myself? But I think it is a case of like, I just like to entertain people, and when I was younger, I like to write, but my handwriting is dreadful due to several aspects. So I would write these stories that would go on and on and on, and people would be like, "This is great. What does it say?" And I'd be like, "I can't remember." So that was the end of that. But now when it comes to things like the internet and typing, I can go back, I can redraft, I can delete stuff without having to rub out an entire page, which is great. So
if you need to insert something, you can move the space to interject it.
If I accidentally smudge an ink line, it's gone in post, you know, so that's great. So it's an opportunity to tell a story quite a lot, because people who know me know I love to tell stories. I love to make people laugh. I love to entertain people. So it's like, what can I do that is entertaining to me and therefore hopefully to other people?
Okay. Does anyone from the audience have any more questions? Because we're running to the end. Does Carol, if Carol wants to come back online?
Oh, she's still there. She's been there the whole time.
I think the dog's been...
Unfortunately, I have dogs barking, so I was putting myself on mute. I don't. You can probably hear them. Sorry.
That's okay.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Do you if you've got anything you want to throw in before we get to the wrap up?
I was just going to ask where you find your art challenges.
Where I find them? Oh, it's a good question. I tend to find them on Instagram, or I will Google like May art challenge. Mermaid is one that happens quite often in May, which I don't often do because I haven't got a huge interest in mermaids. But you know, again, I might do it in the future where I'll be like, what about loads of different types of fish? You know, that makes it a bit more interesting. Also, my friend who I've mentioned several times, Studio Chai, comes up with her own quite often. And there's something a lot more engaging in taking part in a challenge that you have kind of helped to create. So she will give me the prompts, I will make the pretty picture, then it will start getting shared around Instagram. So yeah, I mean, there's so many, it's almost like you can find what you're like, oh, I fancy drawing some robots today. In fact, the March of Robots is going, it'll finish next week. So that's March robots. So I've seen some wonderful ones for that.
There was a Junicorn one as well, I think.
Unicorn is one of the first ones I did, yeah.
I always think of Felf when I see that. I'm like, oh yes.
We've got
that's high praise.
one comment from the audience. Your redhead rambling. Your pretty art makes me happy.
Oh, Lizzie. Oh, you stop.
And Jezebel Arts, wonderful seeing all these pieces. How long would one image take of the ones you've shown us, roughly?
Or choose one and
yeah.
Well, how about the one with the 4 of them in it? That one was kind of the most honest timing, is because it was like draw, ink, color immediately, and it took probably about 3 to 4 hours. But I did have breaks, so yeah. But I mean, if I'm in the zone, I can punch them out. But if I'm not, it can be like you put it down and come back to it 3 days later, like, oh no.
I can completely feel that. I have sketchbooks from literal years ago that I keep because the context is there, the idea is there, but the rendition of it is a piece of pan. It's just awful, and I'm like, no. But then
who is this? I don't know her.
Yeah, who is this? What is my life? But I'll pick it up and I'll be like, oh, I'll use that as a springboard to create a new thing, like just use the gist of it. So that's why I'm loath to like throw out any of my sketchbooks and stuff, because you know the pages that I really don't like, they're in the bin or the research or whatever.
They're gone.
They're gone, babe. So yeah, just leave everything in that I really want to work on at some point if I have chance. But the pressure is real on ourselves. It really is. And that's why personally, like, I'm always like, do not worry about taking a break at all. You are regenerating this magicalness within. So don't worry about churning things out like every hour or whatever, because some people do that and that's great. That doesn't mean that everybody else has to do it. We're not robots, you know. So yeah.
I'll just soon, and with technology, we will be.
I'll just respect the people that can and go, that's nice for them. I cannot attain that at all. Oh, that's great. How inspiring. That's so enthusing.
We
have thank you both.
No more questions coming through. Before we go disappearing, we have the obligatory plugging of the things. And I believe for Carol, where are you? Search Puppet Vikings on YouTube.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And you're going to be having some new stuff coming out soon. And for Felflowne, is there anything else you want to plug before we disappear?
No, just that.
Okay.
Cool.
Just that. Yeah. Just a place where my puppets enthrall people and everyone just goes, my God, you've held them in your hands for 5 seconds. Hit the damn subscribe button. Yeah. Just that.
Oh. Hello.
It's a noodle. Sorry, she's been trying to get in this whole time. Come here. Hey, baby. She's just given blood today, which is why she's got her thing around her neck.
We got Felflowne, your Instagram.com, I believe, is the.
Yes, that's right. That's it.
Fantastic.
That name, Felflowne, that's me everywhere. So if you find a Felflowne, it's me. So hello, it's me.
Have you enjoyed your time in the Super Fortress?
It's great. Been lovely.
Fantastic.
Looks a lot like my house, but I'm not going to.
we try and make our guests feel at home. So we get them all meant to stick into your house and do a full replica.
So, yeah, I appreciate your work.
Yeah. Well, they were here when we turned up, so might as well. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Carol. Thank you very much for Felflowne. We are going to turn you off before we do our rabid plugging, and stay around. We just want to hog the mic a bit. So I now need to bring up my script page. So that was all of our stuff. I get to do my shout outs. First shout out, big bunker shout out to Lyoko is great and Manga Girl. They are the gold Patreons on the Bunkazilla Patreon, which helps cover the costs of all the stuff we get up to at Bunkazilla, or it covers some of the stuff. So massive thanks to them. If you would like to be a patron for Bunkazilla, please go to bunkazilla.co.uk, find out how you can get in there, how you can get shout outs on all the shows, how you can sponsor shows, all the special stuff that's coming. It will all be glorious. Bunkazilla.co.uk. From my stuff, I'm back next Wednesday at 8 p.m. for the big stump of March. That's going to be awesome. We've got Trash or Treasure every Thursday on Bunkers in the Bunker, which is the Discord channel. Bring your own movies. And Paul and Andrew watch all of is coming back soon. It's going to be quite spooky. And stabby as me, my cohort Paul, chew through an entire series of a horror movie, and that's what I've been up to. Laura, what have you been up to?
What have I been up to?
I don't know. What have you been doing in the creative corner?
We talked about Biomecha, the last issue. So this is my copy with the big. Oh, you can't actually see it.
Oh God!
So that's a little label I just put on this.
Yes,
because
successfully broke reality with this issue of the comic.
Oh wow! Look at that. Yeah. Anyway, look at it. So this whopper, this like 90-page whopper, isn't a graphic novel, but it's an issue. It's issue 11 of the comic that I've been working on since God knows when, like before the internet. But I was really happy with how it turned out. And I just wanted to show everybody the work that I do, because it's not really a particularly popular webcomic. It's just one of these old school comics that's been happening since X day. So I'm really grateful for the readers that I've got that stick with Biomecha. I tend to publish each chapter for that little bit of dopamine, that bit of inspo to kind of like, come on, we're nearly there. So issue 11 we're over halfway through book 3. So when issue 12 part A and part B are finished, those are the last 2 issues after this one, and then it will be compiled into graphic novel. This is part 2, so I'll have like the third of the trilogy, the final book. Look, you can see where the angst happens, where it goes a little bit dark. Look, a little bit dark. But it's a high school story. It's a very I'm describing it as a soft cyberpunk, because it's got
cyberpunk.
It's got cybernetics in it. It's in a high school setting. It's also got like mind reading things, technology things, old tech, new tech, biomechanics, obviously.
Cyberpunk, deal with it.
It is cyberpunk, I know, but not a lot of people would agree, but actually they're wrong. So basically it's available. It's in my Etsy, etsy.com/shop/PinkAppleJam. So have a search for it. Thank you. It's also on Tapas, actually. So if you go to tapas.io and search for Biomecha. It's the first one.
You didn't send me the link.
That's fine.
In time.
It's fine.
We've also got some finds we want to go through before we head off. My find for the month is Rewriting Ripley. This is a podcast. Go to your pod provider, look for Recasting Ripley. It is analyzing fandom from essentially from a feminist viewpoint. It's going through a lot of the geek culture issues we have, including the alt-right infiltration of nerddom, and some fantastic stat breakdown that show that it's a small quantity of very shouty people being dicks. And so it's a phenomenal listen. The research side of it is great. Rewriting Ripley, go have a search of that. Definitely worth a listen. The shows are about an hour to an hour and a half, 2 hours each, but they're solid. That'll be that. And Laura, you wanted to go through your Twitch finds.
I did.
So I'll bring them up. So there's this one, which I'm not going to try and pronounce.
Lauren Matthews was an online artist I work with, lives up north, and we worked together on the Aesthetic Warriors art book about 2 years ago now. Time has flown. What is time? Who knows? But Lauren has started streaming, so that's the Twitch URL to start following. So Cute Spoopy Gothics. She describes her artworks. You will enjoy.
Does that mean it involves a boat and cannibalism if it's spoopy?
likely not. Spoops, yes, not spook boats. So moving on to the next one, we've got Chow Illustrations. Chow is a Monster Girl artist. You'll see Chow's table at lots of MCMs. I think Chow started a few years ago. I guess it was a while now. As a really young artist at SunnyCon, I think, and that's how I got to meet Chow. And yeah, Chow's gone from strength to strength and has gone beyond Twitch affiliates to Twitch partner, which is amazing. So we're going to show Chow some love. Lastly, and I work with Lauren, Chow, and Zombie Octopus on the Aesthetic Warriors art book that we put together. Zombie Octopus also does Monster Girls and cute fantasy stuff. So yeah, give Zombie Octopus a follow as well. And you'll see Chow and Zombie Octopus at MCMs in the after times, whenever that may be, when we can go to conferences, etc. But wonderful, wonderful artists, wonderful portfolios. So click and go and say hi.
So that's our Rec Media. Obviously, there is everything that's happening on Bunkazilla, which is the home of the Monsters of Culture. Yeah, I have been the Raggedyman.
I have been PinkAppleJam. Sorry.
Okay, you may not have been. It's all good.
Maybe I was PinkAppleJam. I don't know.
Huge thanks to Carol. Huge thanks to Felflowne. Huge thanks to everyone in the Peanut Gallery. We had Jezebel Art. We had Lyoko, who we've already mentioned repeatedly. Redheaded Rambler. Who did we have all the way up at the top? I can't remember. There was someone else. We will be back. It's disappeared. We will be back on the 24th of April. If you want to be sequestered to the Creative Corner, give us a shout. We're at Hardcore Genki on Twitter, where there is the continued saga of the mole people and all our dumb stuff, and the occasional insight into things happening in the Super Fortress. That's about it, really. I've had a great time. Thank you for being here.
Brilliant. All the very best. Thank you. See you soon. Bye.